Hello and welcome back to London Cycle Routes. Today I'll be showing you how to cycle from Acton Central in West London to the south end of Wembley. This is about a 25-minute ride and you can actually do it all on quiet streets or protected cycle lanes. And remember, if you want to see more safe cycle routes across London, then hit subscribe on the channel because that's the videos that we post here. Right, let's get going. So we're starting right outside Acton Central Station and you go straight down here down Goldsmiths Road. This is a residential street and you'll find that it's actually part of a new low traffic neighbourhood put in by Ealing Council, so you're not going to run into many cars at all down here. You can see this contraflow cycle lane painted on the road to show that it's two-way for bikes. Don't feel obliged to actually ride in it though, that's more there to show motorists that there'll be bikes coming in the opposite direction. Now you saw there we just passed through a set of planters. Those were put in recently over the last year and they're basically there to stop through traffic from coming on the road, and that's why this street is so quiet. Cars aren't actually allowed to use it as a through route, and so all the motor traffic you see on here, very little, will basically just be people accessing their own homes. And it's just as well because there's actually a level crossing on the railway back there, and if this wasn't filtered for cars, then you'd see a lot of cars using it as a rat run to get around the level crossing. And you can see here there's just some lads playing in the road on their skates, which is lovely. That's the sort of thing you see when you get rid of through traffic. This route's going to be a mix of quiet streets and protected lanes knitted together to make a sort of coherent route between these two town centres. It's not a route into central London, it's kind of a local route, and it might help you, get around to the shops or visiting friends or something like that. This is also one of the first routes that I've done in West London. A lot of people have asked for routes in West London. I think it's just safe to say, unfortunately, that West London does have worse cycling infrastructure than the rest of London. There's probably a lot of reasons behind that maybe we can explore another time. But, there's still a few, and this one I think is actually pretty decent. So we're coming up to the end of a street here, and you'll see that's actually the Westway or Western Avenue. We're not going on that, don't worry, or at least we won't be going on the carriageway of it. There's a street here, this is one way. You can see in the opposite direction there's actually a pavement, and you're allowed to ride on that if you're doing this route in the opposite direction. You can see that blue sign there saying that cycles are allowed on the footway. Now, cross here, make sure you look both ways because cars could pull in there. And we're on a little cycle track here next to Western Avenue. This isn't too bad, but unfortunately this is going to be a running theme. This cycleway seems to give way at side roads quite a lot, including extremely insignificant side roads like pulling into businesses and retail parks and stuff like that. So basically, if there's no lights, you just need to look because traffic will basically be coming from behind you and could pull in at quite a speed as well. But yeah, this bit's okay. It's technically a route called C34. But yeah, as you can see, each time you really need to check to make sure that there aren't going to be any cars coming across you, which is quite annoying. Don't worry, the whole route isn't like this. It's just this section here. It does need a bit of a redesign, and I think it has had a little bit of TLC recently. Like, this bit is actually pretty good, to be honest. It's quite a wide cycleway. But I think the main thing is that it does the job. Like, it keeps you away from motor traffic and anybody can ride on it. But there's things like having lampposts in the cycle lane is just ridiculous, and that needs to come out. Unfortunately, it does get a little bit worse before it gets better, but it is only for a short period. And this is the part that I was saying that it gets worse. This is essentially just a pavement. You are allowed to cycle on it. There are little blue signs coming up here. You can see shared space. But, I mean, you're not going to run into any pedestrians on here because they're not going to want to walk down here. It's not a particularly nice place to walk or cycle. And you are essentially just on a pavement next to a motorway. But fortunately, this doesn't last too long. This is probably the worst section of the route, and I'm not going to pretend it's pleasant to cycle next to an extremely fast highway. But again, you are separated from traffic, so there's no reason to actually be, scared or feel unsafe. By the way, if you want to see a full map of this route, a live map of the route, which you can load into a GPS device or anything like that, then click on the link in the description. It's to a website called Komoot, which you can either download their app or you can use it on another app. Now, here is another section where, again, this is not signal controlled, you just want to look both ways. And now, fortunately, we're rejoining a cycle lane. This has a very, very strange design. It's on kind of a floating pavement in the middle. You might be tempted to cycle on the carriageway to the left there, and it does look quite tempting because the surface on this cycleway is absolutely terrible. But, in these videos I like to prioritise safety over speed. Here's another spot where you really need to check for cars. And yeah, if this section of the video is illustrating anything, it's why cycleways need to have priorities over side roads, because, you know, I mean, if you think about it, those cars on our right have priority over all the side roads, so why shouldn't this lane also have priority? It doesn't make much sense. There's a bit coming up now actually where you can see the gap between the bollard and the rest of the lane is so narrow that I just wouldn't even cycle through it. I guarantee that nobody who cycles through there actually goes on the lane because it is so narrow. But I should stress that despite the actually, frankly, at times ridiculous design of this cycle lane, and here's another ridiculous bit where you really need to check for cars, um, it is keeping us separated from motor traffic. So if you're not confident on the road, and to be honest, I don't think many people are confident cycling on the Westway, then generally it is an improvement, and it's probably the best way to go. Now, we've turned left down this underpass at Park Royal Station. So Park Royal Station, that brick tower there is your queue to go down the underpass, and we're going under that Westway. And actually, I think the route dramatically improves here. That section on the Westway was pretty bad. The bit at the beginning in the low traffic neighbourhood was very nice, but that bit was not brilliant, but still, you know, separated from motor traffic. Now here what we're doing is we're just going straight, and then we turn left when we come off that bridge, and we're going through a bit of parkland here. Now, this parkland, actually, if anybody knows this area well at all, I'd be interested to know if this park actually has a name. I've just referred to it as the park along Lakeside Drive. I couldn't find a name for it on any maps, but it does have a pretty decent and wide cycle path going straight through it. And as if by magic, when you find decent cycle infrastructure, you find people cycling. Like, here's a family cycling together and, you know, quite a young kid. And that's really just what happens immediately as soon as you improve the quality. Unfortunately, the quality is not going to remain, it's not going to remain this nice for the whole journey, but, you know, it's a nice respite. Now, coming out here, make sure you look both ways on the road, and we're going down this street here, which is known as Park Avenue. Now, Park Avenue has not got a lot of traffic on it, and the reason for that is that it's not a through route. You can see there's a sign there that says it's a cul-de-sac except cycles, and you'll see just now why that is. It runs into the North Circular, and the way we get under that is going through this underpass, another underpass. Now, I love the tiling on this, by the way. It's so pretty. That's absolutely lovely. And it also has a cycle path that's separated by curbs. It's quite a weird piece of infrastructure because it's actually pretty good, but it's not really a very standard way of dealing with bikes there. Now, you see, once we've gone through that underpass, we pick up Park Avenue again. So at one point, I'm sure that road actually continued through, and then they ran the North Circular across it. This bit is very weird. You see that sort of business there with an Avalites sign on it. I don't know what that is. Go down this alleyway. I promise you this is the right way to go, and hopefully there won't be a van park there when you get here. But yeah, just keep going straight down here, and you know, the surface on this is like the crater of the moon, but we're actually now crossing a bridge over the River Brent. Now, I was very pleased to see that that actually existed when I got here, because it looked like it did on some maps, but nobody who lived locally could tell me that it was actually like that when you got there. But it's actually a really handy cut through. We're back on residential streets now, and this isn't part of a low traffic neighbourhood, but it shouldn't have too much traffic on it anyway. It's not really a through route to anywhere. By the way, if you find this route useful and you want to see more like it across London, then do hit subscribe on the channel, because you know that's what it's all about. I just show you nice routes on bike across London, mostly on protected cycleway and quiet streets. So one reason this route is quite useful is because this whole area is crisscrossed with that extremely big fast road, it's crisscrossed with loads of railways, and it's crisscrossed with the Grand Union Canal, which actually goes all the way to Birmingham. There are a limited number of places you can actually cross all of these, and not all of them are good for bikes. So this is, I think, the best place to cross the Grand Union Canal. It's on this bridge at Hazel Grove, and you can cycle on the bridge. It doesn't require any steps or anything like that. It just has a really circuitous ramp, which is great for, you know, people with reduced mobility who are using wheelchairs or adapted cycles, and it's great for us as well because, you know, we're just on a bike here. And yeah, at the end here you come onto this quiet street, which is basically a cul-de-sac called Atlip Road, and yeah, it's taking us towards Alperton Station, which is pretty much where we're going to be ending, because I'm assured that Alperton is basically the southern end of Wembley by people who know the area well. Now, we come out onto the street here, and there's actually a new school right ahead of us, Alperton Community School, and they put a decent joint cycles and pedestrian zebra crossing here. Usual thing here, I would say, just be careful and don't necessarily expect people to stop for you. Now, if you noticed, there were actually signs on the pavement here that say it's a shared use path for both pedestrians and cycles. It's not clear how long that actually goes on for, so I wouldn't go too far. Maybe just stop about here. But now, yeah, you've made it to South Wembley. This is you know, it's actually a pretty alright route, all things considered. I think, considering the sort of relatively low quality of cycling infrastructure around here. But yeah, thanks very much for watching that, and I hope it's useful to people who live in the area. It's not always an obvious route. And yeah, again, if you enjoyed that, do hit subscribe on the channel, and thanks very much. See you next time.